episode 145 of Coffee and Co-Read, your source for all things literary with Catherine
and Kristen, where we believe there's nothing better than a hot coffee and an awesome book. Join us for our virtual book club where we take one book a month and dive into all the drama, adventure, and romance we can find. Hi, Catherine.
Hi, Kristen.
So, we are at the end of 2024. Yay!
Holy shit.
So our book this month, I guess November was quite a heavy month. We did Iron Flame, so, episodes were quite long. We did a lot of content. Mm-hmm. So this week we are switching it up, doing something quite a bit shorter, less heavy, more like a little fluffy, because December is a very busy month. For any long-time listeners, you know that both of our birthdays are this month, as well as the holiday season. So we are quite busy, and we just thought we'd do something a little bit fun, a little bit light and easy breezy. So we are doing the Nightmare Before Kissmass by Sara Raasch. And you can talk about, because you're the one who actually found this book, so you can just talk about how you found it.
Yeah. I guess I read a book recently. I've been in a slump for approximately 6 months of book reading. And then I found a book on the Libby app, Boyfriend Material. And it's about a gay couple getting together kind of thing. And I loved it. I went through it and I was like, oh, I'm getting back into reading. Mm-hmm. And then after I finished it, I was like, no.
I'm not.
But then I was browsing, I guess just chapters, our bookstore. And I saw the cover of this book, which I think is super cute. It's just I don't know. It's just cute. And I was like, I'm going to judge this book by its cover and I'm going to buy it. And
Lovely.
Then I got it and
And you didn't leave it on your shelf for a million years?
No. I don't know why. It's weird which ones actually take hold because there's no rhyme or reason to it.
Yeah.
But I got it and I immediately read it in I think 2 days and was finished with it and was like, that was super cute.
Yeah.
Loved it. So, yeah, I just thought that we could use a cute book, especially since where we are, the entire month of November, it rained every single day.
It has rained every day.
That is 30 days, and it into December too, but it's the first month, I think, in I don't even know how long. We beat some records and shit with how much rain and darkness and fog and bullshit we've had this year. So, we need a little bit of fluff, a little bit of cute covers and cute books, and
we wanted something on theme, right? It's the holiday season, so why not do something holiday-ish?
Yeah.
And as you all know, the only Christmas book I can think of is Gabriel's Angel by Nora Roberts.
That's true.
It's literally the only Christmas book I got.
Yeah, or Katie Robert has that one where she shares.
Oh, yes.
They share her with her.
Yes, where they become a throuple.
Yes.
Yes, I've read them all.
Yes. But that's the only other one.
My God, side note. So I was telling a coworker, so every Friday after school, a bunch of us, and I say a bunch of us, the entire staff is welcome. Mm-hmm. But usually there's a core 8 to 9 of us. Obviously, sometimes there's more, sometimes there's less, that go for drinks after school. Mm-hmm. So we were all at this restaurant, just having a drink and some snacks. And we were talking about books, and I was telling him, I don't know why, I think somebody that I know, somebody else that I'm friends with who's another teacher friend that was sitting close to me, mentioned something about my very crazy, I say crazy, but my very scandalous taste in books.
Yeah.
Right? And so I started explaining. So obviously I know Katie Robert is not the most scandalous thing I've ever read. However,
No.
she
It
tends
can
to
be
be the
scandalous
most...
for some people.
She's definitely the most, like, salacious.
Yeah.
Right? Like, her, like, when you say what her books are about, they're definitely, like, they're like, whoa. So I was talking about her, not that, the Touch of Taboo series, but about the Demon Bargain ones with the Dragon's Bride and the Kraken's Sacrifice and the Gargoyles.
Read the Dragon one. I didn't read the other ones.
I've read them all.
Yeah, I'll have to, but yeah, I only read the dragon with like 2 penises, and his tail is also basically phallic.
Yes, yeah. So, and I feel like we've talked about them on the podcast before. Anyway, so I told him about the Kraken's one and how the suckers are, you know, they can be useful.
Suck.
Whatever I said to him, I don't even remember exactly what it was. He spit out his drink all over his body. Like all over his clothes. And he literally said, I can never think of... He was like, I can never take a drink around you again. And he was like, now, like, I know this about you. I don't know if, like, every time I look at you now, I'm going to be, like, thinking that you read this sort of thing. And I'm like, it's fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was just really funny that what literally the book I was talking about made him spit his drink all over his body. It was really funny. I'm like, dude. And then he was like, this is the book I'm reading. Hauled it out, and it was like a hockey book.
Like an actual hockey book or like a hockey romance?
No. Like an actual, like a biography or something.
Yeah. Something I'd get my dad for Christmas.
Yes. I'm like, well, we obviously have very different tastes.
Yeah. That's like, hockey books, like hockey romances, we could do an entire fucking podcast on them. Because I don't know if you read many
they're
of them.
Everywhere now.
They are, but...
Icebreaker came out, and now they're just everywhere.
But a lot of authors didn't actually learn
what hockey was.
Yeah.
They didn't learn the rules.
And I get it, but I feel like a lot of authors are going into hockey and they're used to football. Mm-hmm. So they're like, he's the first line. And I'm like, there are lines in hockey for sure. But you're not on the ice longer than a few minutes most of the time.
But there is like a first line of play.
Yeah.
Like the ones that go out first and sort of have the longer shifts, and then second line comes out.
Yeah. There are lines, but it's not like the first line doesn't play the majority of the game, because there are like first line, second line, third line. There's multiple lines, like,
and then they switch out depending on who the opposite team has out as well. Yeah,
but it's just like, when you're reading a book and it's like, and he's been out for 10 minutes. You're like, that's not...
They can't do that.
That's not how hockey works.
They would decease on the ice.
Yeah, that's something.
Yeah.
But yeah, we should definitely at some point talk about things that like take you out of books. Because for me, I struggle with hockey romance, because like as soon as they start talking about the hockey, I'm like, I'd be fine. Like, you've watched Ted Lasso.
Yes.
And like, I'm not a football connoisseur, and by football I mean soccer.
Yes.
I'm not a connoisseur by any means, but they don't show a lot of the soccer playing, and I actually enjoy that a lot, because I'm like, I love all the rest of it.
Yeah.
I kind of wish like some of these hockey books and stuff just showed like a bit less of or said a bit less about the sport of
itself. Well, especially since that's not what the book's for, right?
Exactly.
It's not for us to learn the sport of hockey. You want to get to the romance.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah.
Anytime. Yeah.
So I guess we're gonna get into it. So this is your first time reading this book.
It is.
And it's not often that we do a book that you haven't read, other than last month when you hadn't finished it.
No, but it was really only like the last 2 weeks that I was sort of out of my depth.
Yeah. But normally it's me that's going into a book blind and week for week, just learning as we go. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so this is exciting for me. This is my Christmas gift to me. I know where it's going. So yeah, we will get into it though, and just a heads up, it's not a spoiler-free zone. Not that I think there's a whole lot to spoil in this, because it's
we all know where it's going.
It's a romance book, yeah. And things might get saucy, but they won't this week.
Okay.
But when they do, it's super cute.
Oh. So, I guess we are reading The Nightmare Before Kissmass, not Christmas, Kissmass, by Sara Raasch. Raasch? I don't know.
I'm not sure, but I've been enjoying how you say it.
Raasch.
Yeah.
Anyway, she's a fantasy author who debuted in YA and has written 7 books in that genre. And this is actually her first adult book, and it's designed to be more of a fun fantasy book than she normally writes, according to her afterword in this book. Mm-hmm. She originally planned to write high fantasy about holiday royalty, but with the state of the world, she decided to just make it a more fun, lighthearted read.
Yeah. So, The Nightmare Before Kissmass is the first book in what is called, I guess, the Royals and Romance series, which I'm assuming is going to follow like all of the different holiday royals. Mm-hmm. Obviously, this first week we get into it. This one mostly follows Christmas, Halloween, and Easter's kids, and they're like princes and princesses. And there is another book coming out apparently in 2025 at some point. I'm assuming probably in March. That's going to be called Go Luck Yourself. And it's going to be like a St. Patrick's Day themey to it. And apparently it has sprayed green edges. So that'll be interesting. I'll definitely read it because it'll be fun. So this week we're starting off the book. We're doing chapters 1 to 5. So the book starts, and it is summer break after university, sophomore year. Is sophomore the first year?
No, I think sophomore is like the third year.
Second year? Third year?
Oh, also, I did just look. It is coming out on March 11th, 2025.
Oh, cute.
Yeah.
That's cute. Yeah. So we don't go by sophomore, junior, or whatever years, but I'm sure some people understand what that means. So what I'm calling at the moment male main character, because we don't know his name, is looking at like paparazzi photos of himself that were taken before everything went to hell. And he is currently 4 martinis deep in a pub when his brother shows up to check on him. And he's scrolling through like tabloids, and the sites say Prince Nicholas's latest disaster. And it's funny because before we started reading today, you mentioned that this book is a lot like red, white, and royal blue.
Yeah.
And I think it literally also started the exact, like, it's been a hot second since I've read that one, mm-hmm. but it also had like the tabloids and like shit happening, and like it's very similar.
Yeah. Other
than we get into this whole arranged marriage thing in a bit, which isn't in that one, but
correct.
But yeah, I only just put together the tabloid thing of them too, and I like it. So yeah, so the site that he's looking at says Prince Nicholas's latest disaster, and there's a TV at the bar that he's at, and like there's a scroller on the bottom saying nation granted millions of gifts from Santa overnight, and it says suspected shipping error to blame, and you're just like getting into this book and like what
is
like,
going on?
What kind of world is this? Like,
yeah.
Do people like just, you know, I don't know. His younger brother Chris is wearing a Slay My Name undershirt, and I love his shirts in this book, and I kind of want a lot of them. But we also get like he has tattoos and is like super jacked, and like I guess our main character is more slim build.
Yes, Slim Jim.
But he's the older, but he's the older brother. But basically Chris is like, you really fucked up. And our main character, who is, his nickname is Cole, so I'm just going to go with that, even though we're not introduced to it yet in the book.
Okay.
But he says he agrees that he did fuck up, and his brother is surprised that he's, like, kind of owning up to it. And he doesn't know what to say. Like, he screwed up, and he fled the party he was at like a coward. And we're still very much in the dark about what's going on. But he thinks to himself, like, normally his brother and his friend Iris will laugh. And he thinks of, like, other pranks that he's pulled. Because, like, everybody thinks that this new thing was a prank. But he says, like, once he put their school up for sale, and another time he filled a cathedral with chickens, and another time he, like, played a song on a loop at their Christmas party, which is more of a big deal because he's a Prince of Christmas, so it's like...
Yeah, but, like...
The big thing.
Can I just say, the only thing that, like, really bothers me is this whole, like... I'm sort of tired of this, like, royal fuck-up trope of, like... the prince literally being a screw up in every aspect of his life until he finds someone that helps him change. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, it's just tiring. It's like, why do you need to be a fuck up?
Yeah.
And then it's always like, Daddy didn't love me enough, so I act out to get his attention. And I understand we need a conflict, but, like, can it just be something else?
I kind of feel like this one wasn't, like, we don't get all of the past things, and obviously those are very much, like, he's acting out because he needs attention from his parents. But I feel like we don't get as much of that going forward in the book, and he's not a fuck-up anymore. So, like, I can forgive it a bit more, but I do get what you're saying. Like, it is the trope.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, he basically tells his brother, like, it was all harmless, and he actually wasn't trying to, like, do a prank. Like, that's not what happened. And his brother asks if he was trying to sabotage everything and expose them, because, like, I guess that's their big thing. It's kind of like all these, like, books you read with, like, vampire societies, and they're like, we can't be exposed, and, like, that's what the royal holiday people are. But he says he was actually trying to make things better, but he managed to fuck them up more than usual, and he thinks to himself that he doesn't think anyone will believe it. And then his phone rings, and it's his dad, and his dad is Santa, which is... You know, just
it's very odd writing the notes for it and be like, Santa is doing this. Santa's
a bit of a dick.
Yeah. However, it is explained later on that, like, Santa is an ideal and his father is not actual, like, you know, his father is filling a role.
It's the same as any kind of royalty in, like, this world that she's created. Like,
yes. Like,
just because you're the king doesn't mean you're... He's the king of Christmas, so he's, like, the idea, like, the Santa of his time. But
yes.
I guess it's, like, different ruling Santas do different things. And I think that's, like, the main theme of this book, once we actually kind of get into it, is, like, how much, like, ideology and stuff influences power.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was so political until I just said that. So yeah, Santa is calling him and basically just orders him to come home to fix this, and he calls it disgraceful, and Cole knows, like, his father wants him to come home so that, like, he can spin a story for the tabloids and, like, make it fine so that they just think it was, like, a mistake or something.
Yeah, I don't think his dad actually wanted him to do anything except for just be there and be the face. Like,
yeah,
he was like, I don't want you actually trying to fix anything. I'm gonna fix it, but I want you to be there and, like, just
repent.
Yes.
Yeah. Look pretty for the cameras.
Mm-hmm.
So basically Coles then says, like, his father apparently in the last, I guess this summer, because it's the summer break after one of his university years. So this summer, his father decided that he's going to learn, like, do some training. And at first, he was kind of excited, but then he realized that it was all really a PR stunt. And his father, like, had paparazzi go around with him while he was doing the training. And it's just it's very reality TV. It's very Kardashian. It's, like, very, like, he's making the narrative exactly what he wants.
Yeah, and this part actually kind of really made me sad, because he said that he was legitimately excited for the training and, like, going around to the different departments and learning what they do and how they tick. So, like, already you sort of get that he does care about the holiday. He's not, like, a reluctant, like, oh, I don't want to be king. Like, it's not giving that vibe. Like, he does care and he does want to help, but his father is, like, making everything, like, not visual, but yeah, like,
just like
he's, like, commercializing and, like, instead of doing true, like, making true good and, like, helping and learning on his training, it was all just, like, a paparazzi stunt. Mm-hmm. So he didn't actually get to learn anything.
Yeah. And so he says to his dad basically that, like, all the training was a sham and a PR stunt, and his dad is just like, the fact that he screwed up shows that he isn't ready to take a leading role in Christmas. And, like, obviously, like, I think he's in his early 20s or something, but, like,
I think now that I'm thinking about it, sophomore year is year 2.
That makes sense.
I think it's freshman, sophomore, junior, senior.
Yeah, freshman.
Yeah.
I only know that because of the freshman 15. So yeah, that makes sense. Cole then says, like, it isn't his first time training, and he thinks of his dad showing him the globe, which I guess is an instrument they have there, and telling him that these are the people who need them, and it's their job to make them happy. And he thinks, like, it was when he was really young, and his dad was younger too, and it was, like, a nice moment that he thinks about a lot. But Cole just says, like, he was trying to help people, but his father responds and says, like, it resulted in an economic collapse. So we kind of get a bit of the training in, like, I guess a kind of, he's thinking back on it, but he says, like, they were all super fake, and it was a show of how great Christmas is, and he didn't really connect with it. So he started reading some Christmas letters, because that is what is, like, the real thing of being in, I guess, the North Pole. And he got one that was like, Dear Santa, Mommy lost her job. And then there was another one that was like, I need new shoes and we can't afford them. And then there was a letter that was, Dear Santa, Daddy left and I don't think he's coming back this time. And they also talked about, I guess, in the gift giving department, that they keep letters from the kids to extrapolate and try to figure out, like, the best gift for them, which I think is super cool. And I want that so that I can figure out the best gifts for people in my life. But he read through these letters and he thought that, like, he can't make somebody's father go back. He can't, like, give somebody their job, but at the very least, he could give somebody something material. So he picked a small city on an island and basically granted everyone's wishes, which, like, is so idealistic.
Yeah.
And I get it, but it's also obviously this whole issue. So millions of gifts showed up in the middle of June, and it said from Santa, and then thousands of people were given, like, a bunch of money into their bank account, and he flooded the economy of this small town, and it, like, instigated riots, and it was just, like,
a mess.
Basically a shit show.
Yeah.
But his intentions were good, but he doesn't tell anybody his intentions were good.
No. And, like, To be fair, I don't think anyone cares. And
No.
really, I don't think it matters. He was very short-sighted.
Oh, yeah.
And like I appreciate his intention, but like dude, like think about what like you must have subconsciously tried to out your entire like country, like kingdom, whatever, because why would you send Christmas gifts in June? Like if he
Yeah.
really cared just about doing good, why would he not do it Christmas time?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, I just think it was super impulsive, and he was like, I need to do something good now. I don't think he, like, thought about it too much, which is the issue. But
Yeah, probably.
it's boys in their late teens, early 20s. But we get now that, like, the news of this economic collapse broke in the middle of Lily's birthday party. So the press got his live reaction to it happening, and Lily screaming at him, and him running away from her. And he kind of says, like, the real world is gonna believe that it was all like a tech glitch, but all of the holidays have their own press. So, like, separate magic, it's all on the internet. That's what he's looking at. But, like, if you're actually in the real world and you find one of these sites, you just be like, oh, he's a royal from somewhere, and you wouldn't be able to read that, like,
Yeah.
he's from Christmas. Obviously, his dad is pissed, and he says that Christmas's reach is dependent on their reputation, and he needs to come home. And he's just like, yeah, I will when I'm sober. And his dad is like, what the fuck? You're drinking. But then his brother says he won't let Cole do anything stupid. And his dad just cuts in and he's like, his name is Nicholas. And Cole just thinks of, like, how he kind of chose this nickname as, like, a fuck you to his dad, basically.
Yeah, because Cole, get it? Like Cole in your stocking when you're bad.
Yeah,
It's
I do.
funny.
It is funny. His dad tells him then, like, what he does matters, and there are thousands of people in the North Pole city that, like, he needs to be a good role model for, because, like, if he's not doing his job, why would they do theirs, kind of thing. And then his dad talks again about, like, Christmas's reach, and he says they're getting to countries that they never would have dreamed of. And Cole, he sounds very jaded, and, like, we don't really know a whole lot about, like, this fantasy world and what Christmas is like there. But he's like, he just says, like, it's just a single day and nothing really changes. But his dad just says, like, it's so much more. But then he just says, like, it wasn't enough to keep mom from leaving. And we're like, oy. I don't think that's gonna go well for you. And his dad is just, like, silent for a bit, and then he just says, this is your final warning, and luckily he'll be able to fix it this time. And he says, like, this isn't just his future, it's Christmas's and his brother's future at stake too. He basically, like, this is his, like, you need to shape up talk. And then he hangs up. Iris shows up then, and he notices because Chris, his brother, is blushing. And we get that Iris is Lily's sister. And Iris is, like, the perfect Easter princess. And we get a bit of a description. She's wearing, like, a purple dress, and she's got box braids. So we assume she's a person of color. I am.
Yeah. Sounds right.
We're assuming representation here, which I hope is fine.
I think it is, because, like, there's no real mention of skin color. It's just she's got box braids.
Yeah.
Which I think is cool that it's, like, not coming out and saying it. It's just, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, like, I think the emphasis on, like, the way she styles her hair, I do think that is intentional from the author.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate. So, yeah. Cole kind of thinks, like, he should explain why he did it, but he starts to get a bit too overwhelmed. So he's like, I need to go for air. And he gets up and he looks out the front door, but he sees like a whole bunch of tabloid photographers that he recognizes. And he's like, there are people from the Christmas tabloids and then other ones. And he gives us a bit of information about like how Santa gets around and how the people in Christmas get around. That if you put a sprig of mistletoe in a doorway, you can step through and it'll portal wherever you want to go. And he's like, that's how Santa gets to all of the houses on Christmas Eve. And it also, like, anybody, I guess, that's in the North Pole can use this kind of magic. But then all of the other holidays have their own type of magic, too, that they can get places. So it's interesting.
It is interesting.
So he's basically saying that that's why they're there so quickly. And, like, this is a bar he goes to a lot. And he's like, it was fucking stupid to come here. You're like, yeah.
Yep, and he did it anyway.
Yeah. And so he obviously doesn't go out the front door because all the paparazzis are there. So he goes out the back door and he's in an alley. And he just thinks like he was trying to do something good, but he was so arrogant in thinking that it was actually helping. And then it like all exploded. And then he's just feeling bad about himself. And then the door opens and a guy comes out and he's wearing like a black t-shirt and black skinny jeans. And he looks like the bartender. So he's just like, ah, shit, sorry. Like, I know I came through a door I wasn't supposed to. But the guy... lost my voice, apparently. But the guy is just, like, surprised that he said he was sorry. And Cole's like, yeah, you should probably get in line because I need to say sorry to a lot of people. He's like, you can be behind my ever-disappointed father and my ex-girlfriend's birthday party that I just ruined. Like, she should be in line there, too. And we're like, okay, I guess Iris's sister, Lily, is his ex-girlfriend. And they just broke up because of this fiasco.
Yes.
Good. And then he's just like, he almost starts to talk about how he fucked up with the gifts and shit, but then he's like, this is a random bartender. I can't just tell him that I sent gifts from Santa because he won't understand. But he does just like spill his guts a bit too much. And he asks if this random guy has ever had one of those moments when you're sure you're doing the right thing and it blows up. And he just kind of looks at Cole and he says, you're drunk. And it's like, yes, he's very drunk. And then this random guy is just like standing there, but like Cole is like looking at his lips and he's like, I really shouldn't be because I literally just got dumped. Like I shouldn't be attracted to this man, but he is. And he wonders for a second, like, if he could be paparazzi, but he's like, nah, he's way too hot to be paparazzi. And then he says that tonight was apparently a doomed night anyway, because him and Lily would have broken up after the party either way. So I guess, like, they had already talked about it or something. Not really sure. But he tells this random guy that his family has resources and they don't use them for good. So he finally did, but he made everything exponentially worse and it blew up during his girlfriend's party. And he looks like he understands. And Cole thinks like, he says to him, he shouldn't be saying this, but the guy's like, no, I get it. And he kind of like gives him some insight that he carries for the rest of the book. But he says, like, we feel like we have the best intentions and still cause disasters. And Cole says, I just want to feel good and to feel real. And he says he doesn't know if feeling good should be the goal. It's more realistic to center, like, your life on the little things. One small thing each day that isn't sullied by grief. And then one by one, until you rebuild the foundation that is like your happiness. And Cole just says like the small things that he prioritizes, I guess, collapse. And the guy is like, well, you're prioritizing the wrong things. And he goes to leave because he's like, this is too philosophical for like a drunk alleyway chat. Like, this is too much.
It is, though.
Yeah. It is, yeah. But Cole reaches for his arm and asks, like, what are the right things? And then they're just kissing. We're like, whoa. And Cole's hands are in his hair, and he's holding Cole's hip, and, like, he moans. And then Cole hears the door opening, and he, like, moves away because he's like, there could be paparazzi here. Like, this is not the look to just be broken up with by my girlfriend and have a picture of me and a guy making out. And he turns around and he sees Iris there, and he feels guilty because
he was just making out with this Brando.
Yeah. But he turns back around and the guy is just gone. And he's like, he must have, like, sprinted away. And Iris is just like, are you okay? And he's like, there was a guy. And she's like, there is not. I don't know what you're talking about. And he thinks then, like, he didn't even ask this guy's name, and he needs to be smarter. He's like, that guy could have been paparazzi. Like, if he comes out with a story, we'll know for sure. Mm-hmm. And then he apologizes to Iris and then immediately vomits on her shoes. Which is not great. So then we get, like, a text message exchange, and it's Iris and the Claus boys. So it's Iris, Chris, and Cole. And Iris asks, like, if he found the mystery guy, and he's like, no. And Iris calls the guy a ghost, and Chris is like, he better be a ghost, because if not, there's going to be a story about it. And Iris says they need to come up with punishment for Cole. And Cole kind of thinks about, like, how, like, the staff actually, like, worked everything out, and his dad worked it all out. So, like, I guess people bought the story of whatever
they managed to write
his dad said.
Yeah, they managed to fix everything that from his gift giving.
Yeah, we don't really get what his dad, like, the story his dad spun, but we get that he spun a good one.
Yeah,
they all believed it. But Iris is just like, no, I mean, you puked on my new Louis Vuitton heels. And he's just like, I ordered you new ones. Shouldn't that be enough? And they get into it, and he's like, they were $1,000. And I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ.
It's a lot for a pair of shoes.
It is. But she says, like, she, like, worked a university job until she had enough money to buy them. And he paid for them himself, too. So, like, but she still says it's, like, you should still have a punishment. And she says that she's going to get Chris to pick out an ugly Christmas sweater for him to wear every day his first month as a junior at Yale. I'm like, that would be awful.
It'd be hilarious. It would be hilarious.
It'd be weird as fuck, though. Well, it depends. This is shitty. But, like, he's hot, so people would find it funny. If he wasn't hot, it would just be weird. But we don't actually get if he does it. We assume he does. So, yeah, he basically then promises, like, he kind of promises he'll do it and he won't, like, do any payback. So we assume he does it. But then the book jumps forward a year and a half later, and it's Christmas break after their senior year. And Cole is in his dorm room, and his 3 roommates are gone, and he wishes he was going to the Caribbean like one of his friends, one of his roommates, which actually reminds him of his mother's Christmas text to him and Chris. And he says it's her in a bikini in the ocean, like, just like a picture of her, and she looks like an influencer. And I'm like, that is a weird picture to send your sons, but okay.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be a weird picture to, like, send your sons a picture of you in the ocean having fun, but to just be like, the way he described it, it was like, that is a weird thing to send to them.
Yeah, because I think he said too that, like, she wasn't, like, sending, like, a smiling selfie, like, hey, wish you were here. It was very much like one of those serious face, like, I'm a model. Oh. Mm-hmm. So, like, he's like, she's definitely also using that for her Instagram.
Yeah.
I don't know. I understand being in a terrible situation, but I can't imagine, like, even if you marry and, like, have kids and you're unhappy, so you need to leave. I can't imagine extending that feeling onto your children.
Yeah. what we get from her in this part, at least, it sounds like she's a narcissist.
Yeah.
Because she literally, like, he says, the whole point of this is he's kind of trying to avoid going home. But he thinks, like, he could go see his mother. But then he's like, then she would use that against his brother.
Yeah.
And she would say, like, oh, Cole or Nicholas visited me, but you didn't. And then she'd be like, well, he only visited for a week. You can't stay longer to see your mother. It very much sounds like she is a narcissist. Mm-hmm. Which, like, I don't know. I can't imagine not loving your kids.
Well, that's it, right?
Enough to get over. Like, I know. It's very weird.
It is, but, I mean, I guess it takes all kinds.
Yeah. So he thinks about that, and then he thinks about maybe he could say he needs to work at the rec center. But his dad said that he has a big announcement this year. And obviously, like most of our parents, they tell us way too early so that we can ruminate about it and worry about it forever, wondering what the announcement is. Chris just, like, shows up in his house then, and they, like, banter a bit, and we get that, like, seems like Chris is very English smart. We kind of get, like, he, I guess Cole sent him one of his papers to, like, review, and he rewrote the last 2 pages of it, and Cole was like, it was an opinion piece. Like, my opinion was fine. But he's like, you got an A on it, though. But we also get that, like, Chris is at Cambridge, and he doesn't really talk about his school. And I don't really know, like, I know Yale's a good school, and that's where Cole is, but I don't really know a whole lot about the different universities or anything. But their dad forced Cole to go to Yale, and then was just like, Chris, you can go to wherever you want as long as it's, like, one of these lists of okay universities. But he didn't, like, put effort into getting him then into a school. He put effort into getting Cole into Yale.
But, like, this is sort of what I don't understand, because I would not say that Yale is wildly more prestigious than Cambridge. Like, Cambridge is, from my recollection, and I could be wrong, Cambridge is, like, one of the UK's top universities, right? It's Cambridge and Oxford are sort of the top 2 that everyone knows about.
Yeah.
And, like,
I have heard of those 2.
Right? So, like, and Yale is just, like, I feel like the American equivalent, like Yale, Harvard, all those other ones.
Yeah, I really don't know enough about the schools to be able to comment at all. I was like, these are schools.
Yeah, okay. But do you know what I mean? Like, they all just seem to be the same. Yeah. They seem to be on the same level as each other. They're all, like, internationally known good schools. Yeah. So I don't understand why it's more prestigious to go to Yale than it is to go to Cambridge.
I guess the main point that I guess Cole's making is that, like, his dad put resources into getting him into a school and was just like, you can go wherever you can get in.
Yeah.
But
holy cow. I guess, sorry, I just found a fun fact. Cambridge is the 3rd oldest university in continuous operation. It's been open since 1209.
Oh my god, how?
I don't know.
Wow, that is impressive.
Yes.
Like, what's the first oldest?
I'm looking.
I need to know.
The University of Bologna, which is in Italy.
Oh yeah.
Is the oldest. Then Oxford.
Oh yeah.
And then Cambridge.
Yeah, I guess Oxford, I would say, is the one I know better than Cambridge.
Yes.
And solely from reading, not because of, like,
Discovery of Witches.
Yeah, mostly because of Discovery of Witches, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, interesting.
Anyway, it's just funny because the University of Bologna, have any of us ever heard of it?
No, it kind of sounds like you're saying Bologna.
Bologna.
Yeah.
Say it with an Italian accent.
That's fair.
It's in the city of Bologna.
Which makes sense, yeah.
Do you think they actually, this is going to sound really terrible. Do you think that that's where, like, Bologna, like, bologna came from? Or do you think that's...
It feels like such a Newfoundland thing that I cannot imagine it came from Italy. But, like, if it did, we need to completely rebrand ourselves. Same. But I think it's just, like, what's left. Oh, shit.
What?
It does come from there.
Oh!
Yeah, so the Italian ancestor of Bologna is mortadella.
That's a type of meat too, mortadella.
Yeah. In my brain, Bologna is just all the leftover shit.
It is, though.
It's kind of like... Yeah, but it's kind of like Screech. You know, like, they do the Jamaican rum, and then, like, the bottom of the barrel is what Screech is.
Yes.
So that's what I assume...
Bologna is?
Bologna is, yeah.
Who...
Yeah, well, this says, what part of the animal is bologna? And it says, miscellaneous meat trimmings and byproducts from pork, beef, chicken, and turkey. Sorry, anybody that is listening. Miscellaneous meat trimmings. What a word. Yeah.
Okay, so, again, sorry, we're going down a little rabbit hole here.
This is fine.
But apparently Bologna is renowned for its culinary tradition, and it is home of the famous bolognese sauce, like the meat-based tomato sauce.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the production of cured meat, pork products, such as prosciutto, mortadella, and salumi, is an important part of the local food industry. So no discussion really of Bologna, like bologna.
Yeah.
But that's also just a cursory glance on Wikipedia, so...
Yeah, and I guess, like...
Maybe...
There are classes everywhere, so, like economic classes, so, like, some people are going to be eating the bologna.
But, like, I wonder if bologna that we have here... Is it a facsimile of, like, mortadella? Because the people of Bologna are famous for their mortadella. And maybe this was sort of... Because we had a lot of soldiers in Italy during those wars. So I wonder if maybe this was their, like, sort of facsimile that they brought home. And they were like, look what we can make. It's lunch.
The Newfoundlanders that sound like... Look, they also took on the Italian accent when they come home, which, like, completely believable.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
Yeah. No, that makes sense too. Well, it's also like maybe they ate it there and then they came back and they were like, "This is what we have on hand."
Yes.
Yeah. We could literally write an entire paper on it, I'm pretty sure. If we actually, like, searched it up and, like, did our real research.
Wait.
You guys.
It is a sausage derived from the Italian mortadella, a similar looking finely ground pork sausage named after the city of Bologna.
So we're all saying it wrong.
Yeah, because...
Bologna.
Yes. Everyone here calls it bologna, and I hate it. I refuse to call it bologna. I call it bologna.
Yeah. I don't know what I call it.
But I still, now that I'm saying Bologna, I feel like Bologna is not right either.
No, none of it is right.
Anyway.
It is, like, I haven't had it in ages, obviously, because also I'm vegetarian. But I, like, when you crisped it up and it was, like, a little bit burnt and you had it with some good old KD, it was the best.
No, well, I used to have it for breakfast. It would be like a breakfast meat.
Yeah. We had it for any meal of the day was fine. But a lunch meal or a supper meal would be with KD, and then a breakfast meal would just be like eggs and stuff.
Yeah, no, the only time I ever had it not for breakfast would be like maybe my nan would have it give it to us for lunch. Because my pop would just like slice a piece off the big old sausage. Yeah. He'd like, here, have some. So, like, we would just eat it, like, lunchtime if I was at my nan's. Other than that, like, no. Breakfast only.
But, like, you wouldn't just have, like, some homemade bread and some butter and, like, a raw piece on...
No, not on a sandwich. We would just eat it.
Oh, yeah. It does do that.
It jiggles.
It does floppy flop when you fold it up.
And, like, the funnest part was peeling the paper off the edge.
The layer off,
yeah. Anyway.
That's fancy for us to have some layer around the edge of the meat.
I know, it's always weird, like, figuring out, like, do you eat this or do you...
Well, like, cheeses. Cheeses are the ones that I'm like, am I supposed to eat this edge or am I supposed to cut it off? I don't know.
Should I eat this wax or no?
Yeah. I just eat them all. I eat anything.
It's fine.
Everything's fine.
So that was fun.
So Chris is in Cambridge. And he doesn't talk about school often, but Cole knows that he is currently on year 4 of a 3-year program.
Is he currently or is he going into? I thought he had a year left.
Maybe he's going into. But it's also Christmas. I don't know how. I guess in the UK, they start in January? I don't know.
No, I think maybe, so I think Nick has just one more semester until he's done.
Yeah.
I think Chris has the semester and then another full year. But I don't understand, like, why he's, like, I don't understand why they're making a big deal about him, like, stretching out this 3-year to a 4. Like, why are they talking about it? Like, I also don't understand why, because Chris is the more studious of the two, so I don't understand why they're talking about him stretching his 3-year to a 4-year when he most definitely could have gotten it done in 3.
Yeah, it's odd, and it just makes you feel like they're not as close as they could be, is the only thing I really get from it. Because, like, also, I did a 4-year degree in 5 years because I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I fucked around for a bit in the beginning, and then when I figured out what I wanted to do, I needed to do an extra year. So, like, I don't know. But yeah, so we kind of go back to their present now, and Chris calls Cole a coward and says that, like, they're already late, and Cole is like, yeah, I am being a coward. But he's been purposely staying out of Christmas things since the disaster a year and a half ago. But he knows, like, his dad has an announcement, so he's probably going to make him start to take part again. And then Cole brings up their mother to Chris, and he asks if he deleted the text from their mother, and he says, yeah. He says he doesn't care if she's dating a beach detector. And we get a little later that, like, literally their mother's boyfriend just, like, is one of those people that, like, uses a metal detector on the beach and tries to find things.
See, I would call that a beachcomber.
Yeah, I would too. But, like,
he's using a metal detector, so he's a beach detector.
Yeah, I'm assuming they're just, like, I'm assuming she is actually, like, an Instagram something. Like, that seems like she's an influencer. Like, that's her job. But anyway, obviously Cole is like, how do you know about her boyfriend? You obviously texted her back. And he's like, we promised each other that we wouldn't message her because she's a narcissist.
Yeah.
But Chris is like, no, it's not a big deal. And Cole's like, the last time, like, you talked to her, you didn't message me back for 2 days, and then Cole went to see him, and he hadn't left his room or eaten in those 2 days. And Chris is just like, I was sick, and he's like, you weren't. Like,
yeah,
obviously he wants to have a relationship with his mother, which is, like, normal-ish. Like,
yeah, like, you don't want the person that abandoned you to not love you.
Exactly. But Cole is, like, completely written her off and is just like, no, give me your phone. I'm going to block her number. But Chris is like, no, you can't have my phone. It's full of porn.
Yeah, he just doesn't want to,
of course,
block his mother.
Of course, yeah. So they, like, kind of wrestle each other, but, like, Chris is obviously much bigger and stronger. But apparently Cole is taller. Boys. But Cole says, like, the next time you need to talk to her, let me know and I'll do it. And they kind of just, like, get over it. And Chris tells Cole then that, like, Iris and her dad are already there for Christmas. And that is very odd because normally the first few days of, like, the Christmas season is just, like, Christmas people and they're Easter people. So, like, why are they there? And we also get that Lily, this year and a half later, is actually betrothed to a Valentine's prince. So she's getting married, and they're all like, are you okay with it? Because obviously he dated her a year and a half ago. And Chris basically gets into, like, how Cole isn't, like, having healthy relationships. He's like, you had one relationship that was serious and broke up, and nothing since then. And Cole's like, well, how many people have you dated? And he's like, plenty. And they kind of get into a debate about it, but Cole says, like, Chris is pining after Iris and their dad isn't dating, so he's the only one that's actually, like, having
any sort of relationship.
Yeah. But Chris is like, you and your roommate, like, giving each other blowjobs after finals isn't actually dating.
Scandalous.
Enough. Yeah. And, like, I guess he just tells his brother everything. Which, like, I don't know. I never did, but some people do. But Chris gets the mistletoe ready then, and Cole says it's weird. Like, they kind of go over, like, it's weird that she's, like, Iris is already there, and she's actually also at Cambridge with Chris doing the same courses. Because her dad wanted her to do those courses, and she actually would have preferred to go to an art school. So it seems like they're all really good friends. They know each other really well, but, like, obviously their parents have plans for them. So they leave the dorm and immediately are, like, inside of the Christmas palace, and, like, there are staff everywhere, and it's not like there are no elves around. It's, like, actually staff that are doing all the work. Their dad's assistant, Ren, sees them and says, like, the tree trimming started 10 minutes ago and they're already late, and to go get their outfits on. And Chris, like, takes Cole away while he's trying to, like, ask her questions about, like, the people in the town and stuff, and says not to annoy her because she picks out the clothes, and she says that she'll dress them in neon corduroy if they do annoy her, which I think is just kind of funny.
I also don't think that she would, because then she would get in trouble with King Claus for not putting them in photogenic outfits.
Yeah, definitely. So they get back to their room, and, like, they both get dressed in their separate rooms, and, like, he's in, like, a nice blue suit, and they fix his hair, and they put, like, minimal makeup on him, and they say it's for the photos, and I'm like, it's very, like,
everything is very staged. There.
Yes, it's very, and it's very much like a reality TV show of, like, you're getting your hair done, you're putting your makeup on, like, it's very intentional. Mm-hmm. So they're both ready and they leave the rooms, and Chris has a bun, and Cole puts, like, a candy cane through it with his magic, like, because that's what Ren's hair looked like, which is just kind of cute. So they go to the main room, and there's a Merry meter there, and it's, like, pipes and gauges, and he says it's like a joy meter, and all holidays have, like, their own joy meter, but the magic funnels into it, and then the clauses, so the three of them can use the magic, and Santa can decide, like, their dad can decide, like, who can use the magic that is, like, coming into this joy meter.
Yeah, like, I think he said, doesn't he say that, like, there are pipes that funnel magic to, like, all the different departments in the North Pole, but it's really up to Santa to decide, like, which department gets more magic. And I can't remember if they said anything about, like, the sort of, I'm calling them, like, the noble families. Did they get any?
I think he just gets to decide, which It's all very, like, I don't know if we should have one person ruling over everything, but that is the issue.
Yeah.
So, Cole also, like, thinks to himself, like, his dad shows off the Mary meter every year for the press so that it's in, like, the background of photos, because normally, like, it's locked up and no one can see it, but they show it off in their photos because, like, at this time of year, obviously it's, like, very full. They're, like, at the line of, like, so much joy.
Yeah, it's a display of power.
Exactly. And, like, we've kind of got that that's all his dad really is caring about. So then they go to walk in, and Chris says once more, and Cole says, onto the breach. And it's, like, their thing.
Yeah.
It's also, like, a quote. It's a saying. So they go inside, and Iris and her father are there, and they're by their dad. And they kind of need to, like, smooth all the people to get around. So, like, they talk to the people of the North Pole, and there are, like, obviously, you just said, like, the noble families, and the Frosts are there, and that's, like, the family that their mother is from. And after they talk to them, like, Chris grabs a glass of champagne and, like, shoots it back, but then it starts coming up his nose because, like, he didn't realize you can't just shoot a glass of champagne.
Which I don't understand. How has he never had champagne before?
I don't know. But it is kind of sweet because, like, Cole blocks him from, like, any press photos while he's, like, choking on this glass of champagne, which I think is sweet. And then they get to Iris and her father, and Iris just, like, throws herself into Cole's arms because it's her friend that she hasn't seen in a while. And then she hugs Chris, and, like, Cole looks at him because, like, he's like, oh, you like her. And Chris punches Cole in the leg and, like, freezes his pants with his punch, which I think is just, like, super
hilarious.
Fun. Yeah. And then, like, their dad get them to come over and take a picture, and he tells Cole to behave. And we get a bit, like, Iris's dad really doesn't like Cole because, like, he was dating Lily and then they broke up, and, like, obviously that would have been an advantageous, like, relationship for Easter to get into Christmas. But they make a tiny bit of small talk, and Iris's dad, who I don't even know if we get his name in the entire book, I can't remember, but he asks, like, what are you doing next year, or, like, once you're done your program, and Cole's gonna answer, but then his dad cuts in and says that he's gonna do his master's in global affairs like he did, and Cole is just like, what the fuck? But his dad says that Cole has already been accepted at Yale, and Cole is just like, he just paid for him to get accepted, and he had no idea that this was the plan. Like, he's being blindsided by it. And he realizes, like, this isn't a punishment because he's actually been doing well and he's, like, not gotten into any trouble. He knows that this is just, like, his father wants Cole to be just like him, so he's, like, putting him through the same steps he went through, basically. And he thinks of the guy that he kissed in the first chapter, telling him to build the foundations of happiness. And he thinks about that guy a lot, but he pretends he doesn't because, like, that guy disappeared and he's never going to see him again. And, like, we're like, yeah, sure. We're here
just
for a reason.
by that alone. Like,
exactly. Like, we know he's coming back. Show us him. So Iris after is like, hey, are you okay? And I guess she didn't hear that conversation because he's like, yeah, apparently I'm going to grad school. And she's like, with your grades? And he's like, I know. But he says, like, he's always underestimating his father. And she says that she stopped trying to estimate her father and it made everything better. And he's like, why? What happened? But she says, she kind of, like, brushes it off a bit, but she says, like, she's mostly taking online courses now instead of actually being in school. And she's living at home since Lily got engaged. She's, like, taking on some of Lily's duties now because she's between Easter and Valentine's. And so she's like super busy with that. So she needs to, I guess, do online schooling. But he's just like, you didn't tell me any of this. And she's like, well, I don't tell you everything. And he's like, I tell you everything. And she's like, yeah, I know. And you don't need to. Which I just think is kind of cute. But she says it's fine. And she doesn't need him to swoop in and help. And like, all the while they're talking, there are still like photographers everywhere just like taking their pictures. Mm-hmm. Which is just so awkward.
It's weird. It's like it's like a photo op. So they're like decorating this tree and having to like smile and then talk. And in my head, I'm like, how does no one hear their conversation?
Yeah.
Like, they must be whispering.
It also, I guess, could be magic. They could be using a bit of their magic somehow.
It could be.
I guess. But they don't talk about it. They should say we're using our magic so no one can hear us. But so she says then like she enjoys the work she does, like they bring happiness to people, and Cole asks her why they can't be the ones who are happy, but she just kind of like brushes past it and says like she's happy to be spending time with them over Christmas. They also like joke a bit about like a sleigh race that they're gonna do this year and like who's gonna win it. And like I think last year or a few years ago, like Iris fell off and into a tree, so she's not going to try again this year. And like they kind of joke a bit. So then their dad asks Cole and Iris to join him and Iris's dad by the merry measure. And Iris is like asking Cole what it's about, but he doesn't know. And then when they go over, the staff let in like a shit ton of paparazzi.
Like more than was there originally.
Yeah. And there are some there that are like specific to Easter. So it's like very odd. And he realizes like this is a press conference. And Cole knows his father's like wants all the other holidays to know. And he's like, obviously this is a show of power, something's going on, but he's got like this weird feeling of like, what the fuck? And then of course his dad announces that, and I don't know why his dad is the one to announce this, because it's like
it's Easter's kind of Easter's news.
Exactly. But his dad says that Easter is looking for a marriage prospect for Iris, and Cole just looks over at her and she is like immediately looking horrified. And I'm like, how does no one get that picture? But okay. And his dad says that Nicholas, Shadow and Bone has a Prince Nikolai. Prince Nicholas
good option for her, in my opinion.
Yes, I agree. But yeah, Prince Nicholas is courting her, and they expect an engagement by the end of the season.
Dun, dun,
and like,
dun.
We kind of get that they say that, and I was like, the season, do they mean the winter season or the Christmas? Like, what is a season?
I was thinking the Christmas season.
It must be, because of what happens in your part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems
short,
very short. And it's just funny because like they are going to highlight like the schedule, I guess. And it's like, wow, you really move fast.
Yeah. Okay,
so obviously after this announcement, both Nick and Iris are like horrified. Yeah. But like they're also, I guess, growing up in this spotlight. They're sort of aware that the paparazzi and the journalists are right there and they can't actually look horrified. And like Nick's dad is literally like holding him in a like sort of congenial way, but in a do not go anywhere. Like, you're staying right here
for these pictures.
Yeah. And like Iris's dad is doing the exact same thing. So it's like really awkward for both of them. Yeah. So in my notes, I didn't know what to call the king, like King Claus. So I just call him Santa. It's really weird.
Yeah, that's fair.
But he essentially just says that, like, with this union, Easter is going to contribute resources and magic, which means that both of their holidays will continue to spread cheer to every corner of the globe, which is, I think, like, it's like a more is more sort of scenario, because, like, essentially, the more joy that is created by their holidays, the further of a reach they get, and with more coverage, and when they start to cover more areas on the globe, the more joy they then get.
Yeah.
So it's like a positive feedback loop, negative feedback loop.
It kind of, it kind of feels like they're thinking they get more joy with a bigger reach, but if they just like looked at things a bit differently, maybe they could find a different way to get more joy instead of just this expansion.
Yeah. Well, but that's the plan. Expansion is the goal. And like, I guess for some reason they think that like Easter has reach in places that they don't, and therefore Easter can help like give them an in.
Which is interesting.
They're both
like
Christian holidays.
Exactly. Like, I don't know. Maybe Easter's doing better than I thought in countries that I wouldn't expect, but I don't know.
Yeah. So like, I guess Nick sees Iris's dad like whisper something to her that had her like straightening up her back and like making herself look more perfect. And we never know exactly what he said to her, which I wish we did, but we don't.
Yeah, I'm sure it's like there are cameras watching or something like
stupid.
You need to be perfect.
But like her doing that sort of made Nick remember like actually figuring out what type of person she was at her mom's funeral. Like that's when he sort of saw her for who she truly was. And then we get sort of a flashback of finding out a little bit more about Iris. So he sort of says that like he's always known her, like they've grown up together essentially, but when her mom died when she was 10 years old, that's sort of when he sort of figured out like her inner personality. So her mom wasn't a royal, and she wasn't a holidayer, which is what they call the people that live in the holiday towns that like know about magic and the holidays. So she was just a normal person from France. And Iris's dad fell in love with her while he was on his travels. And I guess they fell in love, courted, whatever. And he told her about holidayers and brought her into his world, and they got married. And it was quite the scandal at the time because holidayers don't marry normal people. And like it was such a scandal that King Claus warned Nick and Chris to never bring home a normal like that. And, of course, that meant that Nick dated a ton of normals because he has to do the opposite of what Daddy says.
Yeah. Daddy Santa.
I don't like it. I don't like it. Anyway, so at the funeral, the Easter King is, like, barely holding it together, and he looked like a shell of his former self. And, like, Nick said that, like, even as a child, he remembers looking at the Easter King and seeing this restraint of like needing to hold it in because the journalists were there and he didn't want to let it out. And he says he understood that restraint because he felt like he had to keep it in like that since his mom left them 3 years ago. So the Easter King took hold of Lily and Iris's hand and took them to go look at the casket. And Iris just screamed because she was 10 years old staring at her deceased mother. So, like, why wouldn't you scream? And she was just swooped like a staff member just swooped in and just took her away, before the king and Lily just sat again for the service, and like seemed like they weren't even aware that somebody came and took her. Like,
yeah,
they're just so out of it with grief. And Nick heard Lily's sobs out in the hall, and then he heard them stop really abruptly. So he went out to see what was going on, and she was just sitting there by herself. The, I guess, staff member was over on the phone or something. So he just said, like, take my hand. And he took her out back to the cemetery where there was no people yet, because they were inside, like, this big old cathedral for the service. And he brings her to her mom's plot. Like, there's a big hole for her to be put in.
Yeah.
And she just doesn't cry. So Nick cries sort of for her. Like, he just breaks down. And he lets all the restraint go over his own mother, and cries. And that's why he's crying. Mm-hmm. But that sort of gives Iris permission, the permission that she needed to also let herself go. And they both cry, like, kneeling at this plot away from all the journalists.
Yeah.
So he's sort of been her rescuer before. And he gives her permission to not be perfect. Is sort of their dynamic. But she doesn't, so far, hasn't sort of given him the requirement to be perfect either. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
she hasn't rubbed off on him yet. So now, like, back in the present, he sees that she's upset. So he does the same thing. He offers her his hand to get away from there, even though, like, his dad is shooting him this, like, warning look. And he knows that, like, nothing is going to stop this train. Like, nothing is going to stop this engagement or whatever. But, like, he needs to protect Iris because she is shaking. She is so upset. So, like, he doesn't even care what's going to happen with him. He just knows that he needs to get her away.
Yeah.
So they go into, like, this ante-room, like an antechamber off this main hallway, and all of them are upset because Chris also comes along. It just gets, like, dropped in that both Iris and Nick are bi.
Yeah.
And Chris doesn't like labels, so, while not bi, just likes everybody.
Yeah.
So they sort of, I guess, Nick / Cole and Iris they discuss it. They're like, we're not suited for each other. Like, they're not each other's types. Like, mm-hmm. Nick is a mess, and he likes him. Yeah. He likes him. His partner to also be a mess.
Which is, like, such an early 20s thing. Like, like, oh, God. You just haven't grown up yet. You're still young.
Yeah. But Iris wants to be seen as, like, reliable and responsible, which Nick is not.
Yeah.
So Nick obviously wants to call off the engagement, and he's like, don't worry, we'll use my reputation to do it. But, like, Iris is like, no, let's not do that. Like, our holidays would suffer. Mm-hmm. And he's like, but what about us? Like, what about our feelings? Don't we matter too? And he's sort of like, I don't understand the big deal, because he said he was in a relationship with Lily for a year and a half, 2 years, something like that.
Yeah.
And that didn't put any of their holidays in jeopardy. Like, there was nothing wrong with them breaking up. But Iris is just sort of like, if you didn't get any negative, there was nothing negative for you after the breakup.
Because you're a man.
Yes. And I was secretly thinking this in my head. I'm like, yeah. We don't actually know if he's a white man, but, like.
Yeah. I think next week she makes a comment about it. That
okay.
They're both white boys.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. So.
That's why.
Well, yeah. So, like, white man power. Anyway, so she just says that, like, that breakup in Easter actually did do something. Like, it made people start talking about her family again and how maybe they weren't fit to bring Easter forward. And like, it's sort of just these reoccurring conversations that people keep having in Easter ever since her dad married a normal. And therefore, technically, Iris and Lily are half normals. So it's this sort of like, are they fit to rule? Because of that. And I guess, like, she sort of insinuates that the people in Easter are just, like, circling, looking for weaknesses. And Iris is just worried that I guess Nick's like, they wouldn't kick your dad off the throne or anything, would they? And she said, like, no, nothing that serious. So he wouldn't have to, like, abdicate. But they would reassign duties to other families under the guise of like, oh, you're being overworked. You're obviously so overworked. We'll take some of the load for you. But that's also taking some of the power.
Yeah.
So, like, obviously all of this is going on in Easter and Nick had no idea. But, you know, and I think he actually was a little bit insulted that she didn't tell him any of this.
Yeah, I feel like it's just like the things that she hasn't told him are getting to him, and he's like realizing maybe he's not the best friend ever.
What a shock. But like, he's not. He's the unreliable party guy.
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't go to him for anything, really. So Nick wonders why his dad didn't use Chris for this scheme. Because, like, Chris is obviously in love with Iris.
Yeah.
But he does realize that it's because Nick is the one who needs to be tied down because he's so unreliable. Like, he needs the stability. Not Chris, who's like the mellow, serious one.
Yeah.
So Iris is like, I would like to go through with the wedding. Or with, I guess, not even the wedding, the courtship. Because the courtship.
Yeah.
Because that's all that was announced, was that they're courting.
Because this is also olden times.
Yes, it's Bridgerton.
Doesn't someone say that at some point?
Yeah, they do talk about Bridgerton, I think. But I think they actually do say, this isn't Bridgerton.
Yeah.
So the dads come in, and so I just found the juxtaposition really funny because Nick goes from being like, okay, fine, we'll get married if that's, or we'll go through with this, we'll go through with this sham, like this fake courtship if you want to. And then as soon as the dads come in, he starts freaking out at Iris's dad, Neo. Like, freaking out about it and being like, I can't believe you're trading your daughter this way. You don't even like me. Like, you're trading her to someone you don't like for what? More power? Like, what is wrong with you? And he's like, he's really going after Iris's dad. And he even says, like, you're selling her off for an arranged marriage even though you got to marry for love. Like, how is that fair?
Yeah.
And Neo does say, like, I did get to marry for love, you're right, and my daughter knows, like, the weight of this choice. And in my head, I'm like, does she? Like,
yeah. This seems, like, I was like, what are they not telling us about Easter? Because it seems like there's something else than, like, all of these little things. I'm like, this isn't enough of a reason for her to just be like, fine, I'll marry my friend.
Yeah. So Nick also argues that, like, we're not pawns in your game. And the dad, like, his dad, King Claus, actually agrees. But he does tell them, like, no, you're right, you're not pawns, but you are duty-bound servants of Christmas and Easter, and you must do your duty. And this is one of their duties. He also tells them, very interestingly, that they're going to court during the Christmas activities, because I guess it's December maybe, so, like, there's going to be, like, a whole bunch of different activities before Christmas Eve. So they're going to court during all these activities, and they're going to get engaged in a few weeks. and then be married at the Christmas Eve ball, which is all super soon. It's like in 3 weeks. They have to court, get engaged, and get married.
Yeah.
Which is not at all what he announced. He said they're courting and we'll expect an engagement near Christmas
the
Eve.
end of the season.
Yeah.
Is what he said. Because I was like, what season? Does he mean like Christmas? Does he mean winter? But so I just had to look it up because I can't remember being in university. But so they're all in university and all of his roommates had left. And it says like online, our university here closes December the 13th.
Yes.
So like, does that mean it's a week and like, it's literally a week and a half that all of this is happening?
Yeah.
They're like, they're going to have an engagement by the end of this season, when in reality, in a week and a half, they're going to be married.
So Santa sort of, or I say Santa, King Claus sort of reiterates how important the union is. That there is a finite amount of joy in the world. And Easter actually plans on contributing some of their joy towards Christmas's efforts at extending the holiday to parts of the world it isn't currently in, and therefore Easter will be extending its own reach as well. So sort of what we already talked about. Mm-hmm. And then he guilt Nicks. He guilts.
Guilt Nicks.
He guilts Nick too, sort of mentioning like all the children that are in need throughout the world. Like, they're all needy. They need things. Like, they need us. But Nick's just like, giving them some cheap plastic toy isn't helping them at all. And now they're getting some cheap plastic toy for both Christmas and Easter. And then he gets annoyed at Neo all over again. So
it clearly seems like this was a long time coming of bitching out his ex-girlfriend's dad.
Yeah, probably. So Neo wants to speak privately to Iris. So Chris and Nick go to Nick's room to talk. And Nick thinks that, like, before his dad was Santa, so, like, when his grandfather was the Santa, he felt differently about Christmas and, like, thought it was magical. But, like, now he's seeing it as a business and that, like, joy is a revenue. And by thinking of it that way, it's not actually helping anybody. And, like, all the joy that comes out of the holiday doesn't matter unless it brings joy back into their holiday. Mm-hmm. And, like, I understand the idea that this novel is trying to portray. Like, it's trying to show, like, Christmas isn't about the material things. It's about the love we share. Like, I understand that that's where it's going. Right? However, like, I don't really agree that, like... Because I guess Nick's big idea is that, like, joy is useless because it's not actually helping people. And if it's only giving them one day of joy, it's not really worth it.
Yeah.
And I disagree with that as a normal and not a holidayer.
Yeah.
I don't agree. I think, like, if you could get one day of joy, why wouldn't you want that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if you could choose to have one day of joy or no day of joy, you're going to pick one day of joy. And, like, having fun down a sled, like, you know, sledding around town or going on ice skates or having a snowball fight, even if it's 20 minutes of fun and then you have to, like, go back to work or, like, you know, go back to worrying about your entire life, like where you're going to get your next meal or whatever. Like, I still think that moment of joy is important.
Yeah.
And I
think right now he's just in, like, a depressive funk.
Yeah, he's very anti the holiday. But, like, for someone who lives amongst normals, you would think that he would have a different view of suffering and joy.
Yeah, I think the thing is, he's also living amongst, like, university kids who are all like, fuck, I need to go home to my parents who are going to be fighting about this and that over the holidays. And, like, I feel like he's kind of jaded by it all.
Okay. Anyway, so yeah, it's just my take on it. I just don't like how he's being very pessimistic.
Yeah, no, and I get it. And I don't want to go into like what happens in the book, right? So I don't want to completely spoil it either, but his take is also wrong.
Okay.
Everyone's wrong.
Good. Great.
Yeah.
I'm glad everybody is wrong.
Yeah.
So it's funny because when they are getting ready to leave, like that antechamber and go talk in Nick's room, King Claus says, "Hurry back, the night's not over. We still have to finish trimming the tree." Right?
Yeah.
So they go to Nick's room, and he just tells Chris, he's like, "You need to yell at me." And Chris is like, "Why would I do that?" And he's like, "Because I'm going to marry the girl you're in love with. You're hurting." And Chris is kind of like, "You need to stop because like, yeah, I'm hurting, but our dad is going to do what he thinks is best, and crying is not going to solve anything. So why bother?"
Yeah. I do, like, I wish, like, there was, I don't know. I don't think I'd be able to just be like, it is what it is. The person I've been pining after forever, you're marrying her.
Yeah.
I think I'd be like, I need some time.
But, like, funnily enough, he said that he actually thought Iris was in love with Nick until today.
Bless you.
Thank you. Which is funny.
It is funny.
So again, Chris says, like, this is not your fault. It's their dad's, and they need to live with it. It's the same way they live with everything else. And he's like, "I'm going to bed." And I'm like, didn't you tell your dad that you would go back and keep trimming the tree because the night's not over? Like, that activity's not done yet.
Yeah.
But he goes to bed.
Everything's fine with it, too.
Like, yeah, no, nothing comes of it.
No.
No one gets in trouble for it. They just are like, "Okay, peace, good night." And the dad just has to deal with it by himself. So Nick texts Iris a little bit later and tells her that he's sorry. And she tells him it's fine. And, like, she just wants to go to sleep. And I think there was, like, jokey back and forth. But I'm not going to lie, their banter sort of exhausts me. Like, all three of them, I find the banter really, like, played out. Like, it's just sort of like, ugh, okay, fine. So, they have their little banter, tells Iris he's sorry, and she's like, "I just want to go to sleep." So he's like, okay, so they go to sleep. The next morning, Chris wakes Nick up all in a panic. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning. And he says, like, "Halloween is here." And he's like, "What? Why is Halloween here?" And initially when I read this bit, I was like, oh my God. So, like, Chris says, like, "An envoy from Halloween is here, and they are not happy about the engagement announcement." And I was like, oh my God, was that makeout session like a weird Halloween custom of betrothal or marriage or something?
You love a weird custom of betrothal. Accidentally engaged.
Yes, I really must.
It's your favorite trope.
It must be, because I'm always like, oh, is this a weird, like, oh, we're engaged, we're married sort of a thing? Anyway, so I was like, oh my God, is that what this is? Is he gonna come in and be like, "The Prince of Christmas is mine"? And I'm actually kind of sad that that's not what happened.
Yeah, that would have been great.
Yeah. Anyway, so, like, Nick is thinking to himself, he's like, oh my God, like, we don't really associate with Halloween because, like, we're Christmas. So we associate with, like, the bright, cheery, happy holidays like Easter and Valentine's Day and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So.
Also, like, you'd think it would be more along the lines of, like, religion, but doesn't seem to go that way.
No.
You're like, Easter, Christmas, yes, all about Jesus.
Valentine's Day, too. Ugh.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's funny because when I think of this scene, I think of, like, Chris, like, running into Nick's room, still in his jammies, and, like, jumping on him, being like, "Halloween is here!" And then them, like, sneaking.
Like,
out the
like
door.
It's Christmas morning.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
But I think of them in like their PJs or even like boxer shorts and t-shirts and like creeping through the halls and like looking over a banister at the Easter envoy or at the Halloween envoy, being like, oh my God, they're here.
I think they're literally in their suits from the night before,
No.
though. Both of them didn't change, but it would have been better
Yes.
if they were wearing, like, little Halloween pajamas just to, like, piss off their dad.
So the envoy is like a group of people and they're all dressed all in black because of course. So King Claus comes out and the reporters are there, which I don't understand. Like, do they camp there? Do they live there?
They live there? Yeah, I don't know.
And he lets them in to hear the conversation. And Halloween just says, like, they're concerned that a union with between Christmas and Easter would make Christmas too powerful. Because I guess Easter is the next most powerful holiday?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I would call Halloween the next most powerful holiday in my brain.
Yes.
But I know, like, it's different in different parts of the world, so I honestly don't know.
Yeah. So, I guess King Claus tries to, like, placate them, and he's like, no. The announcement isn't finalized. The courting has just begun. And he's like, I'm just helping my good friend Neo find a partner for his daughter, Iris. And he's like, I could act as an intermediary if you like. If Halloween wants to throw their hat in the ring, they could also offer up a suitor for Princess Iris. And, like, he doesn't want Halloween getting upset and ruffling their feathers. So he just says, like, Princess Iris and the king are going to be here for the holiday season so that Nick can court her. So, like, if they want to send a prince of Halloween to also court Iris, fill your boots, essentially. Go for it. So, like, they're all like, okay, thanks. We will take this to our king and queen and we'll get back to you. So, like, they're, I want to say, mollified by this.
Yeah.
So, Nick is, like, furious. But his dad is just like, wait till we're away from the paparazzi.
You'd think they would also be like, you're wearing yesterday's clothes. Were you up all night with Iris?
Ooh, scandalous. So, like, he brings Nick and Chris into a room and they talk. And he just says, like, I just said all that to pacify them. I obviously am not going to act as an intermediary between a prince of Halloween and a princess of Easter. Like, you're ridiculous if you think that. And essentially just said that, like, the reason he said all that was just to make sure that they thought they had a shot. But he's like, we're just gonna keep doing this and we all know what the end result is gonna be. Iris is gonna choose Christmas.
Yeah.
But, like, they all know that like, this was the pre-planned thing. They just want Halloween to think they had a shot.
Which, like, I still don't really, like, they're like, we'll just go ahead and you'll still get married on Christmas Eve. It's like, how is this week and a half a shot for Halloween when there's literally a wedding planned for, yeah.
Well, I guess they don't know the wedding is planned.
I know, but, like, how are you going to play it off that, like, she actually gave either of them a fair shot? Like, it seems wild.
It does seem wild. However, they're going to try their best. So, Nick thinks that, like, all this manipulation is wrong and that Christmas is turning into a material holiday that doesn't mean anything anymore. And, like, his dad actually agrees with him and he admits that he has let it become this way so that he can use magic to extend its reach, as opposed to focusing on where it is already. So, like, his dad admits that of what he's doing.
Yeah.
So, like, Nick starts having this, like, internal crisis, wondering if, like, has Christmas ever created any good, lasting good? And, like, he says he knows that his dad used to believe like, believe more in the power of Christmas, but he doesn't. It seems like his dad doesn't believe that anymore. So Claus reminds them not to talk about this to anyone and just leaves. So then the boys are like, well, should we tell Iris about this? And they don't know if they should or shouldn't.
Yeah. It's a lot to be like, you're going to be engaged to this guy, but now they're fighting for you.
Yeah, they're fighting for your hand. So, like, there's a weird little bit, I guess, like, Chris looks, like, you could tell that he looks upset over this whole Iris business. So, like, Nick says, like, he's always used his little bit of magic to make sure that his brother at least has a Merry Christmas. So he's like, I haven't been able to do that past few years, but I'm going to start doing that again. So he's going to try and make sure his brother's Christmas is okay, considering he's so heartbroken about Iris.
Yeah.
So then there's another little text chain between the three of them, and it lets them know that, like, they need to welcome the Halloween delegation properly, and Iris is sad but resigned because I guess somebody went and told her. So, like,
probably her dad, I'd assume.
Let's hope. So, like, the boys try and make her a couple of jokes to make her feel better. And, like, some of them were, like, English grammar jokes. And I was like, haha.
Yeah, and Chris threatens to hide elves on the shelves.
Yeah, it's really funny.
Good times.
So, I don't even know if it's the next day, but there is a plan.
It has to be. It's only a week and a half. We need to get this story going.
It's true. So there's this, like, a plan that they're gonna, it really cuts to them hosting, like, a welcome party for the Halloween delegation. And, like, Iris and Nick joke around with each other. And again, like, all this joking around feels sort of, like, repetitive and a little bit too much. Like, I understand that they have to joke and interact, but it just feels a little, ugh.
Yeah.
So Nick feels like Iris isn't sharing something important, but she won't tell him what it is. And I'm assuming we'll find out eventually.
I can't really remember.
Okay, so maybe not. So Iris is, like, brought up on stage with Neo and Claus, and the Halloween delegation enters, and they've got, like, this entrance with, like, smoke and lightning. It's very much like a Harry Potter Durmstrang vibe.
Oh, yeah.
Which I'm here for.
Yeah.
Right?
Love it.
So they come in, and Nick, who has never seen the Prince of Halloween before, sees him and is, like, struck by lightning because he remembers him from 1.5 years ago when they kissed in the alley. And he's like, oh my God, he's even hotter than I remember. And yeah, he's just having
a shock.
Yes. He's quite shocked. So they introduce the royal family. The king's name is Ichabod, of course.
Yep.
The queen...
Do you think he just takes that name on?
That's actually a good question. Maybe.
Yeah. Or, like, because, like...
Like a Santa, but he's Ichabod.
Santa, yeah.
But you would think he would be Jack.
Yeah.
For, like, Jack-o'-lantern or Jack Skellington or something.
Yeah.
Anyway. His name is Ichabod.
Yep.
The queen's name is Karina. I don't actually know if you're supposed to do the eye roll. The tongue roll when you say...
The eye roll. I was like, what do you mean? You're just eye rolling at someone's name?
No.
I understand.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if you're supposed to call her Karina or Karina, but
yeah,
it just makes you want to go Karina. And their son, the prince, is named Hex. Which
I like.
I like it too. It's a cute name. It's cute for, like, a cute boy.
Yeah.
So, like, Nick audibly gasps at the recognition. He's like, and everybody looks at him. And it's
So
really
awful.
awkward. And he's like, well, shit. And he's like, these next few weeks are going to get real messy. So Nick and Chris obviously are needed for the photos because they're just taking photos of the Halloween delegation with the Easter delegation plus Santa Claus, like chilling in chilling in the back. So they go backstage, and Nick tells Chris who the prince is, and he starts to have a panic attack because, like, Nick has thought about what he has said and, like, the kiss a whole lot.
Yeah.
Over the past year and a half. And so he goes to the bathroom to give himself a little pep talk and essentially just tells him to not be an asshole and be a good Christmas prince. It's like, stop being an asshole.
Yeah. Fair.
So he goes back out, and him and Chris are, like, mingling around. And he leaves Iris talking to Hex and, like, gives them their space. Because he knows that, like, he sort of has to.
Yeah. It's part of the ploy.
Well, they need to make it seem like she's getting equal time with both prince. With both prince or with each prince? What did I just say?
Both princes? You said both prince.
Yes.
With both prince.
So that was incorrect. Both princes. Both princes. So yeah, so he's just trying purposefully to stay away from Iris, even though he knows that, like, she looks like she could use a rescue. So after his little pep talk, he goes back out, and him and Chris, they do spend a little bit of time mingling around. But then they find their spot, and they eat the hors d'oeuvres they grabbed off the tray, and they're just, like, standing at a table eating.
Boys.
Yeah. So they discuss, like, their future and what they want from it. And Chris just says that, like, right now he's doing international relations, but he wants to be a writer. And, like, not a journalist writer, but, like, a novelist writer. Chris also says that, like, he knows that he's being slotted somewhere in the company as a spare. Like, everything is riding on Nick. And if Nick can't do it, then Chris steps up. But, like, right now he's just being treated as an extra.
Yeah.
But he also thinks that, like, his dad wouldn't mind if he became, like, this reclusive author that hid in the woods, just away from them all the time, which is really sad. Because he genuinely thinks his dad despises him.
Yeah, or just doesn't care.
Yeah. So they tease each other, and, like, we learn what their full names are, or their middle names, I guess. So it's, like, Christopher Kringle and Nicholas Noel.
Fun.
Yeah. And Nick just says, like, you know you're not a spare to me. Like, that's his brother.
Yeah.
And he also says that, like, he's gonna inherit everything when their dad goes. And he does want Chris to be there, but he also understands that he has to do what he wants to do. And, like, if he doesn't want to do it, he doesn't have to do it.
Yeah.
So Claus comes over and asks Nick why he isn't over at that table by Iris. And he's like, because I was trying to give them space so that this ruse actually looked convincing. And he was like, yeah, but you can't leave her there all night. And then he looks, and turns out it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. So he let all that time pass by. So they together, both boys, go rescue her. And Nick makes Chris rescue her, leaving him with Hex, which is just hilarious. Like, he's like he sacrificed himself. So they talk, him and Hex, and it turns out that Hex knew exactly who Nick was when they kissed, but he didn't know that the Christmas prince would remember their kiss.
Yeah, because he also thought that Cole wouldn't be a stupid idiot and not know who someone else was in Holiday Lands.
Yeah.
Like, you'd think you'd know who the Halloween prince was.
You would think. So, like, it's weird because Nick is, like, being really insulting and just tells him that, like, he had no idea who he thought he was. And he was like, I thought you were the bartender. I thought you were out for, like, a drink or whatever. But then he says, like, why were you at my bar that night? So, like, it's not his bar, but he likes to think it is.
Yeah.
He also, like, let slip through the course of whatever that he's been thinking about their kiss for the past year and a half.
Which is also embarrassing.
Yes. Heck sort of admits that, like, yeah, he was in the area and he didn't know that Nick liked that bar specifically where shit went down. So he was curious to see what kind of person Nick was. So that's why he was there that night, was to just, he heard the news and was like, I need to get a look at this kid.
I guess he must have followed him out after he saw him or something.
Maybe. So, like, I feel like that would be weird, though, right? Like, if you saw somebody stalking towards the back room, wouldn't you say something?
Yes. Especially, like, wouldn't his friends have seen him follow him out, you'd think?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, so Nick is just being insulting. And he's also, like, Hex does his, not on purpose, but, like, also does his fair share of insulting. Because Hex sort of, like, lets it be known that he thought that Hex was just trying to hook up, and, like, Hex thought that the same thing, and also thought that, like, the Christmas prince is going to turn him into another conquest. Anyway, so, like, there's this moment where Hex sort of runs his lip, like rubs his lips with his thumb or something. And, like, Nick just stares at it. And they have this, like, heated moment where he finally asks Hex why he wanted to, like, know what kind of person he was. And Hex is like, what's the question?
Because they're so heated.
Yeah, they're both so, like, all hot and bothered. So he's like, I forgot the question. And he asks him again, and he finally, like, snaps out of it. And he's like, why wouldn't I? So Nick sort of takes this as his nonchalant way to mean that Hex wasn't as affected by that night as he was. So, like, even though it has nothing to do with,
yeah, it's just kind of like, I don't know exactly what you're going to say, but it sounds like he's insecure. He's like, oh, it didn't mean anything to him. But, like, he literally was just, like, mesmerized by you looking at him.
Yeah. But it was more like I guess Nick is thinking, like, this shit meant so much to me over the past year and a half. And he's like, obviously, Hex doesn't feel the same. Like, to him, it was just a kiss.
Yeah, which is fair. It's a lot to be obsessing over one conversation and a kiss when you were loaded.
Yeah.
And you don't even know if it was real.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So he sort of apologizes to Hex for making him feel like a conquest, because that's what Hex sort of said. Like, he just said, like, seemed like the Christmas prince is, like, making a lot of conquests or whatever. So Nick's like, I'm really sorry. On behalf of my parents, I'm really sorry. Whatever. And he just says, he was like, you're right. I was a jerk. I should have asked for your name, or at least your permission, before I grabbed you and kissed you.
Yeah.
And Hex is really uncomfortable. And he just says he doesn't have to be sorry for kissing him because he isn't the one who initiated it.
What?
Bum, bum, bum. And, like, on that message, he literally just turns and walks away. And Nick's mind is, like, blown. Because he's literally been thinking of this kiss for a week and a half and being like, this is all me. Like, I've done this.
Yeah.
And he's now saying, like, no, you didn't do this. This guy did it.
Yeah.
So then we get another text chain. And Iris finds out that Hex is the kisser. And they tease Nick, asking, like, what they talked about. But Nick obviously doesn't want to talk about it. And then they tease him about, like, the size of his candy cane, a.k.a. his penis. And, again, like, there's just more ribbing. And then they're like, okay, bye. And it's just, like, repetitive and sort of tired. Like,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The content's just a little bit like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So.
I like the stupid puns that they make, though. I feel like it's just like get as many Christmas puns as possible into this book.
Yes, for sure. Why am I so tired?
Soon bedtime.
Anyway, it's a really cute story so far. So that's exciting.
I didn't really, like, I don't read the backs of books, so I really didn't know where it was going when I picked it up, but I like it.
Me too. I'm liking it so far. I really want answers.
Yeah. That's every book.
Yeah, I know. So I guess we're going to wrap it up for this week. If you want to get in touch with us and share your thoughts on anything you heard in any of our episodes, please reach out to us by email at coffeeandcoread@gmail.com or on Instagram or Facebook, Coffee and Co-Read, and coffee.coread on TikTok.
Next week, we're going to be doing chapters 6 to 11 of the Nightmare Before Kissmass, so make sure to follow along. And if you're enjoying our chats, don't forget to follow, rate, and review wherever you get our content. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you on the next page.